Every job, every product, and every dollar generated in a nation's economy can be sorted into one of three distinct buckets. First is the primary sector. This is where we extract or harvest directly from nature, like farming, fishing, and mining. Next is the secondary sector, the manufacturing step where raw materials get transformed. It's the factory taking that harvested cotton and spinning it into textiles. Finally, the tertiary sector. Instead of physical goods, this sector provides services. Think of IT, banking, transport, and retail, the support systems keeping production moving. Tracking how these three specific sectors interact is how economists diagnose the true health of a country. And in India's case, looking at these three buckets reveals a massive hidden sickness. To figure out which of these sectors is creating the most wealth, we look at gross domestic product, or GDP. It's the ultimate economic scorecard. But calculating that score comes with a risk. If you count the farmer's raw wheat, then count the miller's flour, and finally count the baker's finished goods, you're counting the value of the same raw material 3 times. To avoid inflating the numbers, economists use what you could call the biscuit rule. This flowchart shows the production chain. Notice how they strictly tally only the value of the final goods that reach the consumer. The price of the biscuits already includes the cost of the flour and the wheat. By adding up the value of all these final goods across the primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors, we get the nation's total GDP. GDP is a highly effective tool for measuring total wealth, but relying on that single top-line number masks a severe structural flaw in how India operates on the ground. This graph tracks India's production over 40 years. The service sector exploded, overtaking agriculture to become the largest producer of wealth. Logically, jobs should have followed. But paradoxically, while producing a fraction of the wealth, over 50% of India's workforce remains trapped in agriculture. This breaks the standard pattern of economic development. Usually, developing nations absorb their surplus farm workers into mass manufacturing factory jobs, before eventually shifting towards a service-based economy. India skipped a step. The nation's wealth successfully transitioned into the modern service economy, yet half the population was left behind in the fields. Because India bypassed the mass, the top tier is incredibly lucrative. It generates enormous wealth through IT, finance, and software, but it only employs a highly skilled, highly educated fraction of the population. At the other extreme, millions who couldn't find factory work are pushed into casual, low-paying daily labor, like cart pulling, just to survive. The tertiary sector failed to create a middle-class bridge of jobs. Without that stepping stone, millions of rural Indians simply had nowhere to go. To understand what happens when a modern economy locks out half its workforce, we must look closely at what those people do every day. Take the example of a small farmer named Lakshmi. She owns a tiny 2-hectare plot of rain-dependent land. Her entire family of 5 works on that single piece of dirt throughout the whole year. But a plot of land that size doesn't require 5 people. To reach maximum crop yield, Lakshmi actually only needs the labor of 2. Economists call this disguised unemployment. The family isn't idle. Everyone is visibly working. But because their labor is artificially divided across a plot that is too small, everyone is forced to work far below their actual potential. This answers our data paradox. Millions of Indians appear to be employed on paper, but in reality, they are warehousing their labor on family farms because they have no other options. Let's run a radical economic thought experiment. What would happen to the nation's food supply if we suddenly pulled millions of these extra workers out of the fields tomorrow? Total agricultural production would not drop by a single grain. The harvest would remain the same because that extra labor was producing 0 additional yield. Those employment statistics in the primary sector are a mathematical illusion. They hide one of the greatest wastes of human potential in the modern world. But there is a flip side to that illusion. If those surplus rural workers were finally absorbed into real jobs in factories or proper services, the farms would continue to survive, while total family incomes would skyrocket. Right now, India is a country defined by 2 extremes: booming, wealthy tech hubs operating alongside stagnant, overcrowded rural farms. A nation's true economic strength cannot be measured just by adding up its GDP. It is measured by whether its modern sectors can actually absorb, value, and utilize the people still waiting in the fields.